Okay, my name's Jeff Anderson, and I'm here with Mike Bryant to my far left. We are the lawyers for two courageous survivors that filed these two suits here today. And they're both filed in Stearns County Court in St. Cloud, and each of them name offenders at St. John's Abbey in the Order of St. Benedict. And this is the first time, obviously, we've filed suits, but I'm here today with a deep sense of sorrow and haunted by why we have to do this. The reality is that both of these now men, then kids, were abused by two different offenders, one of whom was Thomas Andert. And to my left is one of these courageous survivors, and his name is Todd Bellerose. And the other survivor is identified anonymously, but he was also abused by Thomas Andert. At that time, Andert had been a priest, became a headmaster, and then a prior. The prior at St. John's Abbey, here he is as a priest, here he is as a headmaster, and here he is as the prior. When I say prior at St. John's Abbey, that is the second in command. Also, the priest in charge of the safety program and supervision of the offenders on restriction. When Doe 324, who filed suit, was a teen, he was having some struggles. So Bruce Wolmering, right here, a counselor, a priest at St. John's, reached out to him and other kids at the prep school and said, "I'm here to be your counselor, I'm here to help you." So he went to him. And what Wolmering did to him was, instead of counsel him and guide him, but lay his hands on him in a way that freaked him out, that was sexual abuse. After that, Doe went to Andert because he thought he could trust him. And at that time, Andert was at the prep school, and he had a relationship with a lot of kids. And when he tearfully went and shared this experience with Andert, Andert began to molest him. The year was 1969 or 1970. And 2 weeks ago, Doe 324 walked into our office and shared the secret with us for the first time. In July of this last year, Todd Bellerose had come into a point of crisis in his own life. And he wrote a letter to St. John's Abbey reporting that he had been abused by Tarleton, right here, and Tom Andert. They offered him therapy, which he began to take, and said he'd be willing to give a statement when he was working through therapy. At that time, Andert was removed from his position temporarily, pending an investigation as the prior, as the number 2 guy at the Abbey. Without talking to Todd or interviewing him, they reinstated Andert in February of this year. Put him back into ministry, and they issued a statement, which we included in your press packet. And they said that they did a complete and thorough investigation. And the charge that Todd Bellerose had made of sexual abuse by Andert in Tarleton was unsubstantiated. Now, those words spoken by the abbot and in that press release mirror exactly the words spoken to the press and the public in 1994, when another accusation had been made against Andert by a young man by the name of Ben Spanier. At that time, Ben Spanier was a teen at the prep school and deeply connected with his family, to the school, and to Tom Andert. Andert violated him. Ben struggled. He was conflicted. He became depressed, and he attempted suicide. Andert drove him to the hospital and led everyone to believe that he saved his life. In 1994, St. John's reported that they did a complete and thorough investigation of the allegations made by Ben. And they said then in 1994, the thorough and complete investigation revealed that the charge was unsubstantiated and no criminal sexual conduct occurred. Ben continued to struggle, and in December of last year, he took his life. And today his parents, Margaret and Eric Spanier, are in California spreading his ashes in the redwoods, honoring his wishes. Eric and Margaret Spaniard came forward because they're loyal and thoughtful St. John's people, and went to Abbot Tim Kelly to report what had been done to their son. And with the aid of Richard Sipe, who also wrote a letter, a former monk and priest at St. John's, also brought forth information. And at that time, they said they did a thorough and complete investigation, and the charge was unsubstantiated. And so Eric and Margaret and their hearts and pain and sorrow we carry with us today. And as we've shared this with Todd and Doe 324, each of them made a decision to come forward today to make their stories known, to honor Ben's legacy, and to make sure the irresponsible calculations being made by the abbot, the review board, and all those that are making the decisions that are saying that these kids are not worthy of belief, and we're going to continue Andert and others like him in ministry are going to have to reckon. No more. No more. And so, with that, Todd, I'd like you to share with us, step up and forward and introduce yourself and tell us what you think folks need to know.
My name is Todd Bellerose. I was a resident student of St. John's Prep School in 1979-1980. During that time, I was sexually abused by Father Alan Tarleton and Father Thomas Andert. Because of this abuse, I attempted to commit suicide myself on the campus. I never finished my first year. For the last 35 years, I've lived in pain, and mostly because I thought that I was alone and that nothing could be done and there was no help for me. Last year I decided that enough was enough and I was going to need to do something about taking my life back. So I wrote a letter to the Abbey of St. John and I let him know what had happened. And after receiving that letter, St. John's offered to supply me with therapy, and they asked me to take an investigation or participate in an investigation with a private investigator. I told St. John's at that time that I would answer any questions that would need to happen, but I asked for some time with the therapy in order to sort it out. I can't believe that Father Tom is back in a position where other people, kids, can be hurt. And that's why I was asked to speak today, and that's why I'm here. It was my choice to come here today and to tell what happened to me. Finally, I didn't have to. I could have remained anonymous. I tried to work it out with St. John's privately, and after I heard the news about Father Tom being reinstated, I felt that it was not only in my best interest, but in the best interest of other people to contact Jeff Anderson's office and to come forward with my story. And it has helped tremendously. I know it's a long process, and I'm willing to take it. And I just want anybody else out there that may have been a victim or a survivor to please do something. Take your life back. It's hard, but it's worth it. I'm living proof that standing up for yourself is the right thing to do. And I beg anybody else to come forward, reach out. If it's not, call an attorney, call a friend, tell somebody. There's more survivors than just me. Sadly, I've found out lately that there are many more survivors, and as much as that breaks my heart, it also helps me. And I want anybody to know that you can get help too. I'm Todd Bellerose, and I'm here today because of guys like Ben and guys like Troy and the many other people out there that have chosen to not live in fear anymore and to take their lives back and to make the best they can out of what they have left.
Todd, we stand with you in gratitude, and on behalf of Margaret and Eric Spanier, and on behalf of their deceased son, who asked us to convey this message to you of gratitude, and on behalf of all the survivors that have come forward, and those that still can in the next 40 days, because there's only 40 days left on the window to take action and to take your life back, and to do it privately or to do it whatever it takes. There's 40 days left. And you stand here today as a testament to courage and in the hope that we can reach those that need to be reached in time, and bring hope and help to them. So on behalf of all those that have come before and those are yet to follow, thank you, Todd. You refer to Troy. Troy, come on forward. Todd, move over here with me. Just by way of introduction, Troy Bramlett was known as John Doe 2. He's the one that stood his ground with St. John's and said, I will take my case to trial unless and until you come clean with every file and every list of every offender that you have. And as a result of that disclosure made, we then got the files of all those who have been credibly accused. And there was a disclosure and a promise of a new kind of transparency, and a promise that somehow led us to think that we had turned a corner. And I thought maybe we had. And I'm here today to say that corner hasn't been turned. It hasn't been turned. And I say this with great sorrow, and I say it with horror. And so, Troy, what say you?
You guys know me, I've been up here enough. You can see here I am standing right next to myself, and 324 more times so far. Nothing's changed. More garbage, you know. How do you hurt somebody the way we've been hurt? And you know, give them no time of day and make it seem like, you know, we're going out of our way to lie or to make stuff up. You know, we're the ones that wind up being on trial. We're the ones that were abused. I don't get that. They're supposed to be our spiritual leaders. They're supposed to be there to help us. And every time we turn around, oh, they've helped us, all right. They've helped us drink a little more, use a little more, try and kill ourselves because we don't feel whole. We don't feel healthy. And yeah, there's 40 days left, but you know what? For those guys that are out there and ladies that are out there still suffering, talk to somebody, whoever it is. Get help, because it'll just eat you up. I've been there. I'm still trying to come back from that. Really honored to be standing next to Todd to step up, and every other anonymous person, every John Doe or Jane Doe that's out there, because they've decided to step up and say, hey, this can't continue. For me, when I started this, it was all about just trying to help one person, just bring it out into the light. And I kept thinking it was going to change. I worked with a bunch of really nice people that have held my hand. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Today's about Todd and stepping up. I took a huge step. Thank you for coming forward. Thank you for using your face. Thank you for using your name. And let's get healthy and hold them accountable.
Thank you, Troy. And a couple things. Doe 324, abused by Wolmerine and Andert. Troy Bramlett, abused by Tarleton. And Todd Bellerose, abused by Tarleton and Andert. All at the prep school. All as innocent teens. And each of them, in the year in which they were abused, either dropped out, were kicked out, or attempted suicide so they couldn't continue. All three of them. And when it comes to Andert, let's put up the timeline for a moment. We have to... Do we have the timeline, Stacey? When it comes to Andert, In the spring of 1994, that's when Ben Spaniard had attempted suicide. At that time, Andert was the headmaster at the prep school. And in 1994, Richard Seif, a former priest, went to St. John's and detailed to St. John's the report of what had been happened to young Ben. In 1994, Ben's parents go to see the then abbot, Timothy Kelly, and explain to him Ben's suffering and the origin of that suffering. The abbot then removed Andert as the headmaster at the prep school, but where did he send him? To St. Luke's, a treatment center for offending clerics and offenders, but after that was returned to ministry and continued in a position there as a dorm supervisor, as a priest, as a member of the faculty, and quietly returned to ministry. The review board that looked at it then found no credible or substantiated allegations. The same as what they found this year pertaining to Andert. Same language, same findings, some of the same people, same story. Andert is appointed prior, that is second in command, and a member of the review board. The review board that in 2002 we had helped set up to deal with this stuff. And then they went their own way without any work with us. But the bottom line is that he's now on the review board and in charge of supervising offenders who have been credibly accused and on restriction, and reviewing the safety plans. And then, when Todd comes forward, we have a repeat performance by the review board, by the abbot, and by those who make the reckless decisions that they've chosen to make. And so we share this saga with a great deal of sorrow and a sense of urgency to the survivors and to the community, that if you know of any survivors that have been harmed, or any family members or any friends across this country, in Minnesota, you have less than 40 days to take action, to find your voice, and to do something about what was done to you. And there are people, and there are survivors, and there is time, but they can help. But there is time, but the time is running short. So there's not only a sense of sorrow and anger here, there's a real urgency. And with that in mind, Mike, what more should we know about that?
Survivors have until May 25th. It's 43 days from now. And you see a case that, or you see a survivor that comes in over the last 2 weeks and what an impact it has. You can see that there's still time to get help. There's still time to make a difference. It's still time to protect kids, because he's still out there. It's important that people come forward. The time's running, and it's 43 days left. The Child Victims Act has given a tremendous opportunity to have files, to have names and information to come out. If you're out there, get help. Know that May 25th is the day.
Good.
Thank you.
John Doe 24 asks us to read a statement. I'm going to read that. Without a doubt, St. John's Prep and St. John's University are fine schools in a beautiful setting. The problem at St. John's lies down hollowed halls behind the closed doors. Child sexual abuse and endangerment are ugly, shameful, morally wrong, and ethically reprehensible things. Simply put, sexual abuse is just not right ever. I came forward after decades of suffering in silence because I came to finally realize that the more we who suffer abuse as children find the strength to come forward, the less of a chance what happened to us will happen to someone else. For over 35 years, I battled alcoholism. I was ashamed, humiliated, and had a terrible self-image. I was a loner. I was shunned, and those in leadership positions all my life, and didn't trust them. Not anymore. Today, I am somebody who has a voice. I care about the direction of my future is taking me now. I am a survivor, and no one can take that from me. Congratulations to Doe 324 for that voice and that courage, to Troy for having stood up and stood strong for years and years and years and with us today, and to Todd today for finding that voice and speaking and sharing it with us.